Good evening, everyone. Hope those at home are nice and cool. We're very hot here in the sanctuary, but it is cooling off. I can feel it already. It's coming from somewhere over there. So hopefully by the time we're done, it will be nice and cool. I don't know if we'll go for a full hour tonight. Tonight's more just of an introduction to kind of give an outline of where we're going, but who knows? I mean, we could be talking for an hour, but I'll keep it to no more than an hour. I'm not sure how many weeks this will go. Part of understanding your identity is hearing God speak to you, and we'll talk about that as we go through week to week. But so part of that is I'm going to allow God to speak to me about how long it should go. And right now he hasn't told me how long it's going to go. So it could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, I don't know, but we'll see. I know we're going to be getting into the summer pretty soon, and that may be a time to maybe say, let's take a couple weeks off. But again, we'll let God decide what to do. Okay, so I had told you about this book here, Living Fearlessly by Jamie Winship. It's not required, but I'm going to pull a lot of stuff out of this book. I also have some stuff that's not in this book that I'll be sharing with you. But a lot of it is in here, and a lot of what he says in here is really, really good stuff. So I think it's $14 or $15 on Amazon, I think. I don't remember what I paid for this, because I actually had a gift card, and I used that, so I don't know. I got it for free, essentially, but the gift card paid for it. So, again, you don't have to get it, but you can look this guy up online. He does a lot of YouTube videos. He's got a lot of really good teachings. But the topic is identity. And it's something that all of us, at some point in our life, most likely have struggled with, are struggling with right now, or will struggle with at some point in our lives. Sometimes we go through multiple struggles of understanding who we are in any regard. But I have one question for you to start out with. Who defines who you are? Who defines who you are? So think about that for a second. If anybody wants to raise their hand and say, yeah, I think I know. I mean, the answer is God. Okay? But a lot of times we even struggle with that. We know that, hey, this is a Bible study, it's in church. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's not a squirrel, right? It's a duck. And we're in church, and so the answer obviously is God. But no, beyond that, that truly is the answer. That we should say, that's who identifies who I am. The problem is that we allow society to identify who we are. We allow friends and family to identify who we are. We allow the thoughts going on in our mind at times to identify who we are. But if we let God identify who we are, we will live a better life. So that's the goal of this entire Bible study, is to give you some thoughts and understanding about how God defines us, how we can let God define us, how we can hear better from Him, and hopefully by the end of it, we'll all be living a little bit closer to God and trusting and believing that what we hear Him saying, that we really believe. Because if we can get there, then we have fulfilled the purpose of this Bible study. So I said I was going to have you write down some things. So I want you to, if you got a pen and paper, if you don't, that's okay. I'll give you a few minutes at home to get a pen and paper or whatever, put it on your phone, put it on your computer, however you do it. You can even try to keep it in your mind. I'm not so good at that anymore, but if you can do it, great. But I got a couple questions, and the first one I already asked you. Who defines who you are? So go ahead and write that down. Who defines who I am? And then put right underneath that, God does. Because that's our goal. That's our main goal for this whole thing. Who defines who you are? And write that down. The next thing I would ask you is, who do you think you are? Like, if someone said to you, who are you? How would you answer? Just write it down. First thing that comes to mind. Who do you think you are? And then the third one is, who do people think you are? And there's no right or wrong answer. This is for you to look back on after we do this for several weeks. I'm going to ask you to pull out this piece of paper or this note or whatever, and I'm going to ask you to see if anything has changed about who you think you are and who you think other people think you are. Now, hopefully the first one won't change. Unless you didn't put God, then I'm hoping at the end you'll put God, that who defines who you are. Okay? So, when we talk about, let's talk about first about who people think we are. If I didn't know any of you and I walked up to you, Terry, I'm going to use you. I said, Terry, say, hi, my name's Phil. Your name is, you'd say Terry, right? That's how you identify yourself, with your name that was given to you by your parents, right? And then my next question would probably be what? Anybody want to guess? What do you do? Isn't that what we usually say to people when we walk up to them? What do you do? I'd say you're probably a nurse, right? Because of the way you're dressed. Okay.
She just dressed like that. She didn't have anything else to put on.
What's that?
She didn't have anything else to put on.
She didn't have anything else to put on. Okay. So sometimes we can tell what people do by what they wear. Let me think. If I had one of those fancy octagon hats with a little badge on the front and a big black brim, plastic brim, you might say, oh, he's a cop, right? I don't know if I defined that properly. But if you see someone in a police uniform, you say, oh, that person's a cop. Well, we hope they are, otherwise they're facing a felony for impersonating an officer. Okay, so sometimes we can tell what people do by what they wear. Most of the time we can't. But is that really who you are? Not at all. That's your vocation. That's your job. That is not who you are. So when I ask, who are you? You might say, well, what I would hope you would say, and hopefully by the end of this you'll say, I'm a child of God. That's the best answer right there. Because that answer not only is going to set the stage for the person who asked you, oh, this is either going to be, hey, I want to talk more, or it's going to be, oh, you're one of them, and walk away, okay? Most of the time, if you were to say that to someone, you'd probably pique their interest. Sometimes you're going to get them to talk more. Very few times you'd get them to just completely walk away. Because if they're an atheist, they're probably just going to walk away. But there are fewer atheists in this world than what people think. There really are. They're not that great in number. They would like to make you think they're great in number, but they're really not that great in number. Most of the time you're going to find people somewhere between, I'm not an atheist, I'm not ready to call myself a Christian or say that I go to church even. They're going to be somewhere in the middle there, okay? And those people in the middle are the ones that want to know about God, but they don't know who to ask. So if you do say that, be ready to answer the next question. Well, how do I know God? How do I get to know? They just very well may ask that. So if you get to the point where you have the confidence to do that, fantastic, but just be ready for those questions that might come. And my goal is to help you be able to at least answer a few of them by the time we're done here. So there's a difference between who we are and what we do, and what we do does not define us. What we have done in the past does not define us. What we want to do in the future can in some way define us, depending on what it is. But those two things, we've got to remember that what we've done in the past does not define us, And what we do for a job does not define us. Because I guarantee you, you're probably not going to find a person who says, I'm a plumber because I like to fix toilets. Okay? Now, they may very well, but they're probably, that's a job that they have, that they can make some money, and maybe they thought they'd make good money. Most people don't like to play around with toilets. You know, it's kind of a messy thing. But at the same time, you might find someone who just all their life wanted to be a doctor, and they let that define, and they will let you know, I'm Dr. So-and-so. Okay? So a lot of times when we meet people, they will say that. I had a professor, a college professor, who constantly referred to this person referred to themselves, and I'm saying it so I don't give away who it is, as Dr. So-and-so. They wanted everybody to know that they had a PhD. Okay? Okay, great. You went to school for a long time. But does that really define who you are? If it does, you're missing out. When God defines who we are, we gain a lot. We gain a whole lot. So, let's start thinking about being defined by God. So another question. Write this one down. So write down the question and then the answer. Who does God say I am? And then write down what you think. Regardless of what it is, write down what you think. This is what you think on night one. Who does God say I am? And I don't care if it's positive or negative, I want you to write it down. If it's negative, we'll hopefully get it positive, but just go ahead and write that down. And all you on Facebook too, I hope you're doing this, whether you're watching live or watching the video afterwards, take a moment and write down, who does God say I am? And then write down the answer. And don't put down what you think it is. Put down what you, in your mind, believe it is. Okay? That's important. Because otherwise you're lying to yourself. I mean, sure, I want to write down that God says that I am a wonderful pastor and a great person, but do I really believe that? If I don't, then I shouldn't write that down. So just don't lie to yourself, and it's okay if it's negative. We'll get it to the positive. Okay, before we go on, does anybody have any questions or comments? Hopefully no concerns. Okay. So that's going to be our basis for going forward, is these questions that I've asked tonight, and that's kind of like the foundation, and we're going to build upon that. We're going to talk about how to hear what God says about who we are. And trust me, this works. I've talked to people who have said, I don't hear from God, and by the time I was done talking to them, they were hearing from God, and they heard what God wanted them to say. It is possible, so just believe that we will get there, okay? There's a couple of things that we need to talk about right away that will come up a lot during the study, because we're going to try to attack it. We're going to try to destroy this in our lives if it's there. And the biggest one is doubt. Doubt. Because doubt is a huge enemy of us. It's an enemy of our identity. It's an enemy of God. God has defeated doubt. But has he defeated it in us? If he hasn't, then we're holding on to something. Okay? And we'll get through, we'll pick through that. But what does doubt do? Doubt says, hey, you know, I don't know that I really heard that from God. Doubt says, I don't think I can hear from God. Doubt says, I don't think God likes me. Doubt says, I'm not worthy enough. Doubt says, other people don't like me. So, if you've ever been walking in public somewhere, whether it be in a grocery store or at a, at a carnival or a fair or just out on the street, how many times do you look at, and I don't mean people, eccentric people trying to get attention, I mean you just look at everyday normal people and you say, oh my goodness, I'm glad I'm not that person. Do you ever say that? For the most part. I mean, there's some times when somebody might be trying to do something really crazy or they catch your eye. But I mean, just walking by a person, do you think negative of them? Most people don't. If you do, that's fine. We'll work through that sometime. But most people don't. So what I'm saying is, they're not thinking that about you either. They're not thinking that about you. You know, this is one thing that they teach. My daughter actually taught me this. My daughter is really good at golf. She had lessons, and one time I was playing with her, and boy, it was embarrassing. She's really good. I'm really bad. But anyway, she said, "Dad, you know I'm not sitting here judging you for how you're playing." I said, "I know that." But in my mind, I was saying, she's thinking this guy's terrible. She was not thinking that. And no matter how many times after that I played golf with other people, I still had to get past that. Oh, they're thinking I'm terrible. And it got to the point where I didn't want to play anymore. None of those people were thinking that because I wasn't thinking about that about any of them either. So the things that we think people are saying about us, they're not saying it. They're not saying it. They're just not. It's doubt. It's the enemy. It's all these things coming against us to change our mindset. And it's probably not happening. So we need to get rid of doubt in our lives. Doubt will hold us back very much. Another one that holds us back without even realizing it is unforgiveness. So I want to ask you all tonight, is there anybody that you just have a hard time forgiving? Now, before I go any further, I want to say, I know that some terrible things can happen to people. People are mean to one another. Some people can do some awful things, whether it was when you were a child or whether you're an adult. If it was a divorce or if it was someone stole something or harmed your child. I know terrible things can happen to people. That's reality, that's life. I'm not saying it's okay that these things happen, but they do. So if there's anybody that you're holding a grudge against, anybody that I just can't forgive them, and I don't care what you say, Phil, I'm not forgiving them. I want to warn you that God made this very clear that we need to forgive. So let me tell you a story that my dad taught me, a lesson that my dad taught me, okay? I'll try to be quick about this. I'm guessing 12, 13 years old. My sister's 5 years younger than me, so I would put her about 7 or 8. That's about right. I don't remember what I did to her, but I did provoke her to anger. Unfortunately, I did that a lot with my sister. I was the older brother. She's forgiven me. And I feel bad that I was mean to her when I was a kid. I love her to death now. And I did then too. But I was an older brother, and I provoked her one time. She grabbed me right here and dug her fingernails right into the side of my hand. I still have a scar right there. And, so that was probably 40 years ago, at least. And I still have a scar. It was bleeding, it stung, it was burning, I felt like the worst pain I'd ever felt. My dad comes home from work, Mom tells him what happened. Of course, I got in trouble for provoking her. And again, I wish I could remember what I did, but I don't. But anyway, I told my dad, I said, "Dad, I'm not forgiving her, ever, for the rest of my life. That was awful, what she did to me. I don't care what I did her. I am not forgiving her." And you know what he said? "A month ago, you snuck out through your bedroom window." I went, "No, I didn't." He goes, "I know, you told me you didn't. I know you did. I forgave you. I let it go, as if it didn't happen. But now, I'm not forgiving you. And in fact, you're going to pay the punishment. So, grounded for 3 weeks, 1 week in your room, you can only come out to go to the bathroom and eat." This was during the summer, so I didn't have to worry about school. I was like, "What?" And he said, "Do you want to make it worse?" Nope, I'll take it. I'll take my punishment. He said, "Do you forgive your sister?" I said, "Yes, I do." He goes, "Okay, then I forgive you." That's a lesson from the Bible. God says that to forgive. And if you won't forgive, then he won't forgive you. That's rough. That's really rough. And that's hard for me to even say, and I know it's in the Bible, but I also preach that God forgives everybody. Okay? So that's one of those things that it's really hard to reconcile. But basically, God's saying, I want you to forgive. Not forget, not become best friends with. I want you to forgive everyone. So if there's anyone at all that you're having a hard time forgiving for whatever reason, don't try to do it on your own. Go to God and say, look, I know I need to forgive so-and-so. God, will you please help me forgive so-and-so? And you might say, I did it, I forgave. And then you're going to think about it. You're going to be bored sometime. You're going to think about that awful thing that person did, and you're like, I don't forgive that person. Okay, then take it to God at that moment and forgive again. There's a person in my life that I had to forgive at least 20 times, probably more. But I have fully forgiven this person for what happened to me. And I'll never go back to not forgiving. And let me tell you, when God presented it to me one night and said, you still are holding on to this. And I took it to him and I said, this is probably the 20th time, but I forgive. Things started to change for me. I started to understand him better. I started to hear more clearly. I started to be able to control my temper more. All kinds of things. Unforgiveness will put you in chains that you will never see, and it will never let you out until you cut off that unforgiveness. It is that serious that God said he wouldn't forgive you if you don't forgive everyone. Now, forgiveness is not forgetting. I still remember why I had to forgive this person. This person's not my best friend, never will be. But that's okay. No one said you have to sit around a campfire and sing campfire songs with this person who you have a hard time forgiving. But please do whatever you can to forgive. Because if you don't forgive, you're not going to hear clearly, you're not going to know your identity real well, and it's not because God's punishing you. Okay? It is because of spiritual laws that exist in our world. It's not God pushing it down on you. The spiritual laws of unforgiveness, when we don't forgive someone, we allow ourselves to be attacked by the enemy. And when we cut off that unforgiveness, they cannot attack us for that reason anymore. And God rejoices when we finally forgive for good. Okay? So doubt, unforgiveness, and the next one is pride. Pride is very subtle. Pride is often hidden. Pride will keep you from knowing your true identity. But pride is a defense mechanism because we don't always understand our true identity. So we're like, I don't want to feel like I don't know who I am. So pride comes out, and it comes out in many different ways. We could do a whole study on pride, so I'm not going to really get into it a lot tonight, but just take that to God. Say, God, is there any area in my life where pride is holding me back? Not just about identity, but anywhere. And be ready if you've never done that before, because God will tell you. And it's a good thing, because it's easy to get rid of. You just take it to God and say, oh God, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't realize. Or maybe you did realize, and you say, okay, I'm going to finally let it go. But it builds your relationship with God, gets you closer to God, and you start hearing better, you start knowing who you are a lot better. So doubt, unforgiveness, and pride. There's other things, but those are the three things that we're going to focus on as we go through the next few weeks. All right, so it looks like we're at almost 7 o'clock. We may actually, but this next thing I want to bring up and start, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more next week too. It might take about a half hour. Well, we'll see. So before I go on those, anybody have any questions? Anybody on Facebook have any questions or comments, anything they want to ask? And by the way, if you're on Facebook, or even if you're sitting here and you get into this group, you think about something when you get home, and you say, hey, I got a question, pop that question in this group and we'll answer it. Maybe somebody in the group will answer it. Maybe I'll answer it. This group is not just for showing the video, it's for discussion. So is anybody, I know, Jolie, you're not on Facebook, but is there anybody that is on Facebook that's not in this group that wants to be? Okay, and if you're watching this, then you're already in the group, because that's the only way you can see it, is in this group. By the way, Pat, you are in the group. I did double check. If you can't get to it, I will send you something, a link that will get you to it. And the first time you get into it, it pops up on the top at Facebook as one of your groups. And I'll actually put something out for everybody, just in case there's other people that may not be here that just don't know how to get to this group. I'll explain it. I'll put something out on Facebook. So be looking for that. And I'll send you something privately to make sure you can get to it. Okay? Yeah.
I might need the link. In case I can't make it, I'll need the link.
Okay, you'll need the link. Okay. What was your name again? Barb Marinacci.
Yes.
Barb Marinacci. Okay. I will send it to you as soon as we're done here. Are you friends with our church Facebook? Okay, I'll look you up, add you as a friend. You're friends with Debbie?
Yep.
Okay, I'll find you there. I'll get you added. I'll send you a link that'll get you into the group. If you have any trouble, just reply to I'll send it through from mine, so that way you can reply directly to me.
Okay, she found it.
You found it. Very good. Praise God. Okay, so I got no comments yet.
On forgiveness,
Yeah.
what if it's somebody that, do you have to go to that person and, say, you hurt me, or you said something? Because what if it's somebody that you don't have contact with anymore?
Forgiveness is between you and God before it's between you and someone else. Okay? It's not a bad thing to do that with that person if you can, but you can't always. Sometimes, like geographical reasons, or if the person has passed on, or the person just won't let you get within 100 feet of them. There's all kinds of reasons. If you take it to God, you say, God, I really want to forgive this person, God will walk you through it. It may be a multiple day thing. It may take several times of him. It'll come to mind. Okay, that's how you'll just be, sitting watching TV, doing the dishes, whatever you're doing, and, I got to forgive that person. Act on it, because that's God speaking, okay? And don't worry about not forgiving, because the fact that you're asking means that you're already most of the way there, okay? And if there's something else holding you back, God's going to make sure that you get it right, okay? So don't let doubt tell you that you're not forgiving, okay? Anybody else? Okay, so this next thing that I want to bring up, and we'll start it tonight. If we don't finish it tonight, we'll maybe bring it up again. It's just something to think about, okay? This is not like, I didn't get that. I'm not coming back to this. Don't let that stop you. If you don't get it, it's okay. It's a bit of an abstract topic, but it's something to think about going forward, because it might come up a few times as we're going through the study, and it's about worldviews, like basically the way, it's a mindset, a worldview, the way you see things in the world. I think you'll understand it when I start to explain it, because we all experience this, but if we can get away from this particular worldview, it will start to ease anxiety, it will draw us closer to God, and it will help us understand who we are. So the two worldviews are what I would call separation and communion. I almost said communism. That's not what I meant to say. Communal, okay? Separation and communal. So, separation worldview says that there is only so much in this world. There's only so much food, there's only so much water, there's only so much air, and I got to get all I can to keep me alive. And we see this come out a lot if there's a disaster, like a hurricane, for example. Not so much with the people that are directly affected, but the people that are not directly affected, but affected on the outskirts, and then even so throughout the world. Because when there's a hurricane, what's one of the first things that's going to happen? Gas prices go up. I don't care where that hurricane is, gas prices are going up. The day Katrina hit Louisiana, I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to the gas station. And then I didn't go because I would have had to sit in line for probably an hour, because people immediately went to the gas station to get gas, and sure enough, the gas prices went up drastically the next day. That is separation mentality. That is separation worldview. That's saying there's not enough, and I got to make sure I get what I need. Does that make sense? It means when you have a separation worldview, it's I'm only thinking about myself. I might think about my family because I love them, but don't get in my way, because I need what I need and I'm going to get it. Now, communal worldview or mindset is God provides everything that we need. I may not feel like I have enough, but I trust Him to provide whatever it is, whether it's gas, milk, eggs, a place to sleep. And God tells us this in the Bible. Consider the sparrows. Is your life not worth more than a sparrow? But yet God takes care of them. He takes care of them. I often will go outside at night to let my dog out, and I'll see a deer running through my yard or the neighbor's yard, and I think, where does that deer sleep? In my backyard? My neighbor's yard? Under the pine tree by the gazebo down by the park? I don't know. But you know what? God provides. I can go in a house and have a place to sleep. Well, what if I couldn't? Would God still provide? Absolutely. Because that's the mindset that I've trained myself to have, that God will provide. A separation mindset is, I've got to do whatever I can to make sure my house doesn't get lost. I got to make sure I make my payments. I've got to do that anyway, because the bank will take it if I don't pay it. But it's not my first thought. My first thought is, what can I do to help someone else not have this separation mindset? Because most of the world has it. We almost all, at one point or another, have it. And it's, I got to look out for me, my basic needs. But when we can say, I trust you, God, to take care of my basic needs, and now can I do something to help someone else with their basic needs, that's a giving, that's a communal mindset. Again, this is not communism, that's not what I'm saying. This is not political in any way. It is giving to others. This is what the Bible teaches us, that if there are poor among you, give to them. If there are sick among you, heal them. If there are people who are thirsty, give them a drink of water. How can we help others? Now, I'm not trying to say that you need to go out and become this missionary in your own backyard, that you're just constantly looking out for other people. If you do, if that's what God called you to do, great. But don't beat yourself up. Don't let doubt say, hey, you're not that person that He's talking about. This is not a vocation. This is not a who you are. This is a mindset. And that mindset will come into play maybe once in your life, maybe 1,000 times, maybe never. But keep that mindset that I'm looking out for others because God's looking out for me. That's the communal mindset. The separation is, God didn't give us enough, I got to get what I need. Because what's that do? That causes wars. Just ask Putin. Ukraine has what we need. We got to survive. He has said that Russia can't survive unless it has Ukraine. That is a separation mindset. If he would have said, hey, Ukraine, can we have some of what you have? If they had a communal mindset, they'd say, sure, we'll give you what we can. And there wouldn't be a war there right now. So, and that's something that comes out of this book too. So if you get this book and you read it, you'll hear a little bit about this. And it goes more than just basic needs. It's, if I feel like you're invading me in some way, if anybody ever get close to you, real close, and you just like step back, that's because that's part of human nature, but it's also, hey, you're trying to take my space away from me, so now I'm not telling you you need to just stand there and take it, because that makes everybody uncomfortable, even when you stand there and take it. People around you are like, whoa, that person's not giving up their space. So anyway, but these things, when we feel like we don't have what we need, what does it lead to? Starts with an A, anxiety. That's the biggest cause of anxiety, is when we feel like we don't have what we need. And what's anxiety do to us? It starts to tell you, you're not who you think you are. And we start to believe it. And anxiety says, you're not going to get what you need. And we start to believe it. What's the best cure for anxiety? Prayer. Because God will give you what you need, but we've got to let Him tell us, and we've got to believe it. We've got to have faith. The problem is, I can see this in front of me. If this was an apple, and I'm hungry right now, I'd be thinking, man, I'm going to eat that apple. And then Jolie comes up and takes that apple. Okay, Jolie, we're going to fight, because you just took my apple. Okay? But if I say, God, I'm hungry. I know you'll provide. Jolie, do you want this apple? We don't have a fight, do we? And you think I'm a better person, and I think you're a better person too. Okay? So that's the whole separation and communal thing. Separation is the world's separated, the world doesn't have enough, I got to take care of myself. Communal says that God takes care of the things, we don't have enough of everything, we just don't. But God somehow takes care of it, right? Jesus told his disciples, they had a separation worldview at one point. He says, they say, we're going to send these people home because we just don't have enough food to feed them. Let them go. And Jesus is like, I got stuff to say. You feed them. We don't have anything. We got 5 barley loaves and 2 dried fish. Well, how are we going to feed them? He says, feed them. Separation says, we don't have enough. Communal says, feed them. Guess what they did? They fed them. God does that today too. Okay. Ian and I talk about this occasionally. There was a time when he was pastor here, and we thought the food pantry was, we're starting to serve too many people. What we were up to, maybe 20 at the time? How many we got now? 100? At least? Or more? And somebody, and I don't know who it was, and it doesn't matter, was saying, we're going to run out of food. And Ian's like, watch God. And I'm like, yeah, I believe it. We don't know where it came from, but more than 20 people were fed, and now more than 100 people are fed. And you know what? If 100 people more come next Wednesday than what we had this past Wednesday, I know, sorry, Terry. She doesn't want to hear it. We need more volunteers. Please volunteer Wednesday. But you know what, Terry and everybody else, God would make it happen. God would either send the volunteers or he'd keep the people away. He is the great balancer. We have to trust in him. When we try to do it ourselves, we're telling God, I know what I'm doing. And you know what that's called? Pride. And remember what we talked about holds us back from knowing who we are? One of them is pride. But when we say, man, I don't know how you're going to do this, but you'll make it happen. Last year, there was some talk about the food pantry being financially strapped. God spoke to me immediately. He says, you tell them to pray and watch what I do. So I stood up there, and I said, God says for everybody to pray and watch what he does. And what did he do? Was it a $25,000 check we got? Or 15? Something like that. Oh, was it 10? Okay. It was a $10,000 check. But still, who's counting?
Right.
God made it happen. Okay? So the separation says, I don't have enough. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And that leads to anxiety. Communal says, I trust the Lord. He will make it happen, and I am going to live in this space. When you can live in that space, you no longer need anxiety medicine. You no longer fight with people for taking your apple. If I had one, I'd give it to you, Jolie. You no longer do that because you trust God. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. It might not happen in a year or 2 years. But if you continually work with God trying to get to that point, that alone is going to take your focus off all the things that are stealing your focus right now and put it on God. And that alone is what he's looking for. Keep your focus on him to provide, and he will work out the when and the how and the where and all of that. He will work it out.
The striking thing about that occurrence, the Christmas baskets, I think Terry would agree. I mean, we did it, we did the gift cards.
Yeah.
I mean, we had enough money, but where would it put us if we spent it all?
Yeah.
And as a group, we decided to do it.
You decided to do it. Yeah.
Once that man and that check came in Thursday afternoon at whatever time as we did the last one. I mean, I was still checking people out, and Nancy came up from downstairs and said, look what we just, I mean, that was the last person that had gone down, but I hadn't gone down, so she said, look what somebody gave us.
Yeah. Probably more than what the gift cards were, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that is what I'm talking about. When you get in that mindset that I can give, I don't know where it's coming from, I don't know how, but trust in God. And you know what? If God had not come through at that very moment, he would have eventually. Yeah. But he wanted to show you.
I mean, as far as I was concerned, it was just simply.
Yeah, sure. I understand that, right. As far as you're concerned, it was going to happen anyway, even if we never got that check. But that's the kind of faith that God will reward. And that's the kind of thing that will draw you closer to him. And that's the kind of thing that will begin to change you over from that separation mindset to the communal mindset. And that's a better space to live in. A much better space to live in. Now, do not let the enemy take this and say, you got to do it all right now. Because that's not who you are. That's not what God's saying to you. God is saying, if he's speaking to you right now saying, yeah, maybe I could make that change. If you're thinking in your mind, maybe I could change a little bit. That's God telling you that, okay? Not me. That's God working in your mind right now. But it doesn't mean it has to happen before 8 o'clock tonight, okay? Let God work with you in his timing to make it happen when it's best to happen. Because that's how God works. So any questions about that? Comments? I think I should have turned the temperature down just a little bit more. It got cooler, but still a little stuffy in here, isn't it? Okay. What's that?
I said, and then you'll get the electric bill.
Yeah, true. Or I'll get a Chuck will say, hey, did you turn that down? I'll make sure I turn it back up before I leave. There's nothing going on here tomorrow, is there? No, I'll be here tomorrow, but I don't think it affects anybody else. Okay. Well, that's all I've got for tonight. We're at about 7:17, so a little bit early. I don't want to get into a new thing because we won't have time to talk about it, but just think about those questions tonight. Next week, I'm going to ask you another question and have you write something down, so make sure you bring something to write with. For those in the church, we will probably be in the back next week. I think that might be better. It's a little cooler back there, and I think I will be able to hear better because when the air conditioner's on, I couldn't hear real well. I'm not sure if people on Facebook could hear you. I hope that mic was working, but We'll be back there. But just ask, who do you say you are? Who does God say you are? Who does God say you are? Who do you say you are? And what do other people say about you? And again, if any of it needs to change, let God be the one to change it. Not me. Let God be the one to change it, because he knows better than I do. He knows all of us better than we know one another, even better than we know ourselves. So he's the one to take care of that. And then think about that mindset thing. You know, we had some pretty good examples of that with our food pantry. But how can you move from that separation? And I'm telling you, the first time I heard this, I would go through my day and I would start to say, oh, well, I gotta, wait, no, that's separation mindset. And I would try to think, how do I move into that space of communal? And I would ask God, and I don't always obey. You know, sometimes I still fall back. We're human beings, we're gonna fall back. But try to work towards that, to let God move you into that new space. It will make your life better. And my goal is that by the end of this time, whatever it may be, that you will be able to confidently say, this is who God says I am. Are you with me? All right. I'm excited about this. I'll make sure you can get into the Facebook group. Anybody in this Facebook group can invite anybody else. If you've got friends that may want to be a part of this, whether they can come on Wednesday night or watch on Wednesday night, this video will be in the group so everybody can see it. And it's part of the reason it's in the group is because it's a place where you can go and it's right there. You don't have to scroll through, okay, what day was it? And you don't have to do all that. It's just right here. Plus, it keeps it private so we don't get a bunch of people saying, hey, I saw your profile. I would like to be your friend. And we don't get stuff like that. So that's why I did the private group thing. Worked out pretty well last time. Hopefully it'll work out this time as well. Okay, well, let me pray, and then we'll get out of here. Gracious God of heaven, we thank you, Lord, for this beautiful night. Thank you for the beautiful weather. Thank you that we won't have to deal with snow for this Bible study. Lord, we just pray that as we go home, that you'll continue to work in our minds. Lord, let this be the night of new beginnings for us, that we really take to heart what the things that you've taught us, and that we can discover who we are. Lord, you know who we are. Tell us who we are, so that we can live who we are. And we can trade the lies of the world for your truth. We can trade the lies of the church for your truth. The lies of friends and family that don't even realize they're not telling us the truth. Lord, we just want to know your truth. So guide us these weeks as we gather. Help us to know who we are and who you think we are, so that we can move into a better space with you, grow closer to you, and know you more. So whatever unforgiveness, pride, or doubt that is affecting us, tonight, Lord, begin this process of eradicating it in us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And I'm going to teach you some things about how to help get rid of doubt over the next few weeks. I don't know when it'll come, but things that God has taught me that helped me overcome doubt, because it was a huge problem in my life. It really was. And God taught me some things that he spoke to himself, or that he led me to somebody who was teaching on it. And I still got a lot to learn, but I want to teach you what he's taught me so that we can overcome doubt together. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Good night.